Life Rhythms with Ryan Skyy. Observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all.
Welcome to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I am your host, Ryan Skyy. This episode is brought to you by Mixillery.com. I'm excited to have Mixillery on as a sponsor personally because Mixillery is all about connecting people who are looking to hire a remixer. It's a platform that you can use to find and hire someone to remix your song. And why that's so important is because anybody can go online and you can search music producers, you can search for remixers, you can hire somebody, but it's like, how much do you pay them and who should you hire and what genre should you choose? And with option overload, it can be a little overwhelming to figure out what's the best use of your money. Because what it comes down to is remixes are marketing tools. A remix of a record will get that record in front of a larger audience. It will get that record played in venues and areas like the gym or a club or a car or a fitness studio, places that maybe your original song may not be appropriate for. So it is an important marketing tool, but then who remixes it is important because first of all, the quality of the remix, and also maybe they have their own audience that's going to discover this remix. Maybe they have a following. Maybe they have a radio show. Maybe they tour and they'll be playing it out live. These are all sorts of things that are important. So Mixillery is a service that will help match you with the best remixer for your budget. So check out Mixillery.com for more information on this. Life Rhythms is a radio show that revolves around my personal growth journey. As a DJ and a producer, I spend a lot of my time observing the world around me, looking inward, trying to make sense of it all. I've been doing it in song form, and now I do it on the radio show. Each episode of Life Rhythms, we feature one guest and one song or album. And I choose topics related to that guest music for us to talk about during the episode. I'm excited for today because I have with me Tom, and his artist moniker is Please and Thank You. And we're featuring Tom's EP, 3 Days, 2 Nights. He's amassed over 100 million streams on platforms like Spotify and Apple. He was featured in a Hershey's chocolate television commercial that has over 1 billion views. He's toured. He's played at EDC and Electric Forest. He's done official remixes. He's released on Universal and Dim Mak. The list goes on. I'm excited to talk to him about his EP. And we're going to dive into the songs. We're going to go, because on Life Rhythms, we're all about like going deep with the artists and the music. We're going to go through the lyrics. We're going to go through the songs. I want to find out what Tom's experience was like over the past couple years with COVID, kind of like the evolution of his music, how it's evolved. And now that we've got new music coming out and what that experience has been like. We're going to learn more about his upbringing and kind of how that led to him today and his take on the music here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, I'm going to have Tom on, Please and Thank You, feature the EP. We're going to go into the music right after this on Adobe Radio. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, Ryan Skyy. Adobe family, I've got my guest with me today. Please and Thank You. His name is Tom. Hey, Tom.
What's going on, Ryan?
Glad to have you here and to feature your EP, 3 Days, 2 Nights. Adobe, you heard a little clip of the EP coming into this. Tom, I want to ask you about the Please and Thank You moniker, your artist moniker. First of all, looking at, I love how Gen Z it is. PLS, apostrophe, not apostrophe, PLS, the and symbol, TY. Please and Thank You.
That's right.
Yeah,
Where'd
that come from?
It's kind of just a clever byproduct of my first and last name, which is Tommy Lees. So I took the T and the Y. I took the first letter and the last letter of my first and last name. So the T and the Y from Tommy to create the T and the Y and Thank You, and the L and the S in Lees to create the L and the S that ended up being Please when you add a P in front. So it's kind of like last name and first name combined to create the silly little acronym moniker, if you will. It's like
that there's
how
meaning behind it though.
Yeah, there really is. It's like how if you would text somebody LOL, laugh out loud. It's kind of just a little people text TY as if it's thank you, or PLS as if it's please. So totally makes sense. It's just
TY is
funny.
My thank you. I very rarely actually spell out thank you anymore.
Yeah.
But actually,
exactly.
Some of the people on my team, they're in Mexico and English isn't their first language. So I do find myself every once in a while, like I will spell things out because I'm like, I don't know if they know, what the abbreviations mean. You know what I mean? So I'm like, let me just spell it out just to like make sure.
Totally.
when you came up with the name, I'm curious because like with me with Ryan Skyy, Skyy is not my legal last name. I came up with that in college, and for me, like at first, for me, like Ryan Skyy represented like what I could be as an artist, and Schmidt is my legal name. So like Ryan Schmidt was where I was, and Skyy was like what I saw. I knew like I had a lot of developing I wanted to do to get there. So like for me, coming up with a name was kind of my way of like forcing me to go on that like hero's journey. Like
I love that.
Because it's
Love
kind
that.
of like when you publicly commit to something, whether even if it's just like posting on Instagram and saying like, hey, I'm gonna lose my goal is to lose 40 pounds next month. To like set a goal publicly or to like come forward with a name and to like dub yourself a name. For me, I think that's super useful for people because it's a way to kind of like get you on that path. And it worked for me. So like for you, please and thank you. What kind of effect has it had on you? Like when you first came out with it?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so serious as to an entire hero's journey.
Also,
but
like I thought, I mean, this is like my show and I think about this stuff all the time. So I wouldn't expect you to just like off the cuff, have like a super like deep, well thought out answer. I talk about this all the time. But just in general, like I'm curious, what's it been like with you?
yeah, so when I was kind of thinking about a name, I just really wanted something that was true to me. So I think, just this kind of ended up being, literally like something that's playing off my first and last name. Like nobody, I think there's like a clever story behind it. And I think I was just leaning more towards, a name that is just like, I don't know, kind of silly and funny and kind of in with the times. Like, yeah.
Well,
as I was explaining, like
lighthearted, and I think that fits your music well.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing I'll mention about it, I actually haven't really talked about this much in interviews, which so this is kind of funny, but yeah, it's kind of a
music
kind of
yours. Let's hear it.
But when I was growing up, I went to my parents placed me in like cotillion classes, like to literally learn like how to be polite, like to learn manners.
Oh, wow.
So
what's it called?
Cotillion.
Cotillion. Where's that from? What is that word? Like, is it, you don't know? Cotillion. I have just never heard of it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So your parents put you in cotillion classes. I'm gonna look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, go for it. I'm really not like the right person to be to be explaining the history of cotillion or like anything about it at all. I just remember it's like literally
I have a definition. So it's an 18th century French dance based on the contra dance. That's the first. You know how they have like two definitions. The second definition is a formal ball, one in which debutantes are presented. Okay, so it's like it's based off of 18th century French etiquette, basically. Wow.
Yeah, really. I just remember like it was like it was almost just like they taught you. And granted, I was like very very young. Like it was like I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, but it was really just like how to like it was like almost like teaching you like manners and just like being like nice to like like you would like dance with like other girls and like or like how to properly dance like the ball like I guess
the debutante ball I was talking about.
Yeah, like a ball or whatever. So you just like you dress up and like dance with the girls and like it was just like
that's interesting. And was it a weekly class? How often did you go?
Yeah, I think it was either weekly or bi-weekly. Yeah, it was just something like that. It was like I don't know. It's vague in my memory because it was so long ago. But yeah, I just remember it's like me and like all my friends, like I don't know, all the local kids like in the area, and then just like like other girls. It's like an opportunity to like talk to girls at like a young age and like dance with them.
Smart.
Like an excuse to dance with them and whatnot. But yeah, it was really just like the point of like trying to teach you manners. So it was like kind of that kind of plays into please and thank you as well, which nobody actually like knows about or I've explained to people before.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
I'm thinking about that. Yeah. Wow, interesting. And why did your parents put you in that? What was their? Were you a bad kid?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's I don't know. It's just like a thing that people did around you, I guess, like a lot of other
Oh, is it like a
kids.
community cultural thing? Because you're in
Yeah.
Florida, right?
Yep. I'm in Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, I don't know, just like country club crap or whatever.
Got it. Got it.
I
It's
don't
it's like it's like okay, we want to help our kids develop and we want to give them an advantage in life. And I'm just like I'm guessing like what your
yeah.
parents are thinking. But I'm thinking I could see it being like, okay, well, how can we give our children an advantage? Well, maybe if we teach them manners, teach them how to socialize, how to carry themselves in different settings that might help them later in life as they court girls, as they whatever they pursue in their career. Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. 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 You make it sound pretty good, but
Does that work? That works for now because mom and dad aren't
yeah,
here. They can't
you
tell
make
us.
it sound like it makes sense. So
It does to me.
kudos.
And mom and dad aren't here to chime in, so we can go with
Yeah.
that because that works for me. So real quick, for those listening in who are new to Please and Thank You, I want to make sure I want to catch them up to speed with you. So you've amassed over 100 million streams on streaming platforms, and you had a song that was featured in a Hershey's chocolate commercial, and it got 1 billion views.
Yeah, I was on TV for like the longest time. Like I couldn't on almost every channel. So it was like literally like you couldn't watch TV at one point in time and not see this commercial that was playing. But yeah, so I think it's
wild.
like amassed upwards of 1 billion views at this point, according to whatever stats they provided.
According to your
But-
publicist, and according to online. That's amazing. Wow. Okay. And when was that?
I believe this was like 2019, so a couple years back.
A couple years back. And you've also played at festivals like Electric Forest, EDC, Las Vegas, Shaky Beats, Breakaway, and you've done remixes. You've been on BBC Radio 1. Like you're doing well. But also, I'm curious too because you took a break for a couple years, right? And then you came back.
I did.
How was that break for you? Why did you take a break? And then what was it like on the break and coming back? I'm curious.
Yeah. So it really kind of happened during COVID. So it's like, I think a lot of people are like, I think there's a misconception about the break. Like it was not really a break or a hiatus at all. Like during the time I was away, quote unquote, I was just working on music. So it's like,
oh yeah,
but
that's not a break.
Yeah, it's not a break. It happened during COVID. So it's like nobody was really touring or playing shows anyways. So it's like all anybody was doing was just working on music. So I think there is a little bit of a misconception about like my hiatus or break, if you will, just because I guess what fans were missing was me releasing music during that time. So it's like there was a period of time from 2020 to 2022 where I hadn't put out a song. And I think that's where people like came up with that I was on break or away or just like whatever.
The whole world was on break during that
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Yeah, there was kind of like a forced break, right? Put on all of us. So prior to this moment where you were, because there's a difference between saying like, I need to step away from music and take a moment to pursue something else, and then, I want to come back now. But in your case, it's like, no, I'm in my cave and I'm developing and creating new music. I'm working on stuff, and you're in that development stage, and then you're going to come out with it again. But prior to that, were you releasing music regularly, and there was just like fans were getting used to that?
Yeah, I think it was like a combination of like regular releases and also regular touring, like crazy amount of touring that happened 2019, like right before COVID happened. So it was like, 10 to 15 festivals that summer.
Yeah.
All the major festivals that you just listed off, I think happened over that summer. So it was like, just a lot of touring and consistent music releases. And then, COVID happens 2020. No shows, and also just took stepped away and wanted to focus on working on new music and kind of like reinventing the sound. And I think fans, I think that's where the kind of break or hiatus or where'd he go kind of.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the sound evolving, but first I'm also curious, when you were touring prior to COVID, was this kind of like had your career just blossomed into this moment and then COVID hit and you're like, oh man, I was just starting to tour, or had you already been touring for a while? Like, I'm curious the effect it had on you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think anybody that would look at this, it's different from like what I'm trying to get at is like, I think it's different from an outsider's perspective, but I'll give you like my perspective on where I was and like, yeah, just the general gist. I think from my perspective, I think I was just heating up. Like, I think, the end of, over 2019 summer, like a ton of festivals, and then kicked off into like a major like club and venue tour later that year. And then we also had a ton of festivals and opportunities lined up for 2022 or 2020 simultaneously, like the year COVID like actually happened, that kind of wiped out everything. So it's like, we had a major festival slot at Bonnaroo that year. I was playing main stage at a festival called Empire Music Festival in Guatemala, which is like the ultra of Guatemala. So yeah, just a ton of, and that's, that's not all, but like, yeah, just for reference. So I think it was just like just heating up 2019 and like getting ready for like probably the breakout year, like the largest year of my career in 2020. And then COVID happened and wiped it all out.
Wow. So you're just heating up and then COVID happens. Is there like a moment, me personally, I panicked a little bit. When COVID hit for me, all my gigs, everything, all the clubs shut down, all my gigs ended. There was a moment where I kind of panicked temporarily, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what's this going to mean? Is this, and for you, like when the momentum stopped, what was that like?
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously like devastating. I think, just trying to like make the best of the situation and reassess with the team. Like, we were just trying to figure out if we would be in contention for all of the things that we had planned, like to be rebooked on, because it was going to come back. It was just like a matter of time when. So it was like, just scrambling to figure out like if we were going to make it on the lineup when it eventually happened again, we were actually going to be rebooked and whatnot. But yeah, I think that, just trying to make the best of like the situation in that way. But
other than that, the silver lining for you is that you had this moment, a 2-year moment with COVID, right? That you got to actually like kind of pause and reflect and work on the music and maybe, and as you had said it, you didn't use these words that it evolved, but you had said you kind of like, it changed over the time. Like you came out with like a new sound, right?
Exactly.
And maybe if you were like touring, you may not have had that opportunity to really like craft what it is you're putting out now. Yeah,
exactly. I felt like I didn't have time to sort of like reflect on the music I was making and just figure out like, I feel like I didn't have a time or place to like take a step back and just assess whether like I was making stuff that I truly loved and stuff that like, it's just like, I don't know, beneficial for my career as a whole and just like doing what I wanted to do. And it's, I just didn't have that time or place until COVID.
And it could be stressful at the time whenever you're going through that moment. But now that everything's opened back up, you've got new music out, you're on a show right now, you're interviewing, you're touring. I would hope that would give you even more confidence and kind of assuredness of like, wow, if I got through COVID where everything shut down and then it came back up and now my career, and I just like picked right back up where I left off. My career's still doing well. I got new music out. Like that's kind of a relief. It's kind of like, oh, cool. Like I can do this long term.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah, I feel like I'm back. with the new EP and project. Yeah, I'm just really excited to be putting out music again. I feel like the response has been awesome. Yeah, I get to talk to people like you and I just feel like I'm wholly back.
How would you describe the sound of the new EP compared to what you were doing prior to COVID?
Yeah, so the older stuff was future bass, if you will.
Yeah.
People always ask me to explain the difference, but I'll just explain like the similarities because I truly believe they're not too different. I think at the core, it's more of just an evolution. Exactly. Okay. That's a great way to look at it. I think at the core, it's been like danceable beats and just like prominent vocals over top of those. So it's like before, if it was future bass, it was a little bit slower and more down tempo. Now it's more of like a house direction. So it's just, more up tempo stuff. But at the core, it's still danceable music with some great vocals over top.
Okay. I love that. And I definitely want to get into the EP. So the EP is called 3 Days, 2 Nights. And it's a day and night motif.
Yeah. So the entire concept of the EP is basing the productions around the titling. So there are 3 songs that are more piano house, kind of summery vibe tracks. And those are based around the three days titling and motif. And then there are 2 songs on the EP that are darker, kind of clubbier records that I based around the 2 nights titling and motif. So it's kind of just basing the production styles around the titling.
That's kind of that's cool. And and there's 2 other tracks on it. It kind of is technically an album, right?
Yes, technically. Yeah. So there's I think there's 6 core songs.
Okay.
Flash. Let me retry. There's 6 core songs, and then 2 alternate versions. So there's a VIP of a song called Limit, and then there's a stripped kind of acoustic version of a song called Upside. So it's in total actually 8 tracks. What's considered an album by Spotify and other DSP terms, but like if you go to Spotify, like it shows up as an album. So it's technically 8 tracks, but we call it an EP because the other 2 are really just stripped and alternate versions.
So it's kind of setting expectations. I think that's smart. Because if you say like, hey guys, I have an album out, but then like a couple of the songs aren't full-fledged, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, it is technically an album, but I love the idea of saying it's an EP and people go to the EP and they're like, oh wow, this there's more songs than usual on this.
Exactly.
Like 2 or 3 songs. But 6 to 8 songs, it's like, oh, it's kind of like back in the day, and I don't know like if you've experienced this, but when we had CDs, and they would have like bonus tracks, like right? They would have the bonus. I remember like the Lauryn Hill. I had Lauryn Hill's Miseducation, and I think she had 2 secret tracks on there, and it was like so exciting. It's kind of like added value.
Yeah. No, I gotta set the expectations. Yeah, it's really only 6 songs with 2 bonus tracks, if you will. So
it's hard to surprise people in the age of streaming, because you can't like you have to see the song titles. You know what I mean? Like with the CD, it's not listed on the cover art.
Yeah.
You as a DJ, what are your sets like? Whenever you're like, how much are you playing your music live? And
so that's
not live,
that's kind
of like how much of your set is your music, and then do you like to like surprise fans? Kind of what's your approach? Because I haven't seen you live yet. I'm curious. Like
right, yeah. It's a new approach now with all the new music that's coming out. Before, like I said, the music was like a bit slower tempo, just more down tempo, like chill stuff. So I actually found myself playing mostly other people's stuff or remixes of those songs. Just to make them fit for like a festival set or like a high energy show. So but now because the music's like more upbeat and faster tempo, like the set has kind of become like 90% of my music now. No remixes either. It's all
that's such
all
a
the
great
truth
feeling. Yeah, to hear your music being played live like that. Like right as you originally intended it, not altered for the space. Like this is the original.
Yeah.
And
what's
it been like in terms of the audience reacting to it?
Yeah, no, it's really nice. I think it's like it's new for me. Like I said, like all the old sets, it's like never really, or I would squeeze like 1 or 2 here and there, but it's like to have a set that is almost entirely original. I think that's like every artist's goal. So it's really yeah, it's special and new for me, like this year, 2023, but with all the new music. So
Yeah, and to hear a well-produced, well-mixed and mastered song being played in like a huge festival setting or on really good sound system, that's just I get so nerdy about that, but just I love to hear it live.
yeah, you can't beat it. Can't beat it.
Yeah, it's so cool. All right,
I
so
hope
what's
I
that?
hope my stuff can live up to the hype.
Yeah. So we're coming to the end of the first half of this segment. We're going to take a quick break. And when we get back, Adobe family, we're going to dive into the songs on the EP, 3 Days, 2 Nights. And, Life Rhythms, it's all about, like diving into the lyrics and the music and the inspiration behind it. So we're going to actually like go into the songs and talk about some of the lyrics and talk about like how we relate to it and kind of our interpretations of it, all that kind of good stuff. First, we'll take a break. We'll be right back here with Please and Thank You right after this on Adobe Radio. Welcome back to Life Rhythms Radio Show. I'm your host, Ryan Skyy. I've got my guest with me, Please and Thank You, and we are featuring his new EP, 3 Days, 2 Nights, which you heard a little clip of it coming into this segment. And I really want to dive into these songs because Life Rhythms, we're all about the music, the lyrics, the stories behind it. And what's fun about having artists like DJ producers such as Please and Thank Yous is, and even myself, like we don't always write 100% of our songs. It's collaborative music, and music should be collaborative. So I'm curious with your music, how, like these songs, there's 6 songs on the album. I have the ones I wanted to focus on today that I printed out. I have Party in My Head, Echoes, Limit, and New Color.
Love it.
Did you work with top liners on this? Did you write these? And also real quick for Adobe people listening, a top liner is a songwriter. Somebody's like writing the top vocal line to production. So go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah. So did you work with top liners?
Yeah. So I'd say each track kind of happened uniquely and individually, but for the most part, we would receive a vocal demo. Like from the artist, from the top liner, and then we would strip away whatever instrumentation and whatever production was on the demo, and then from there produce out.
Usually the demo production it does need stripped, right?
Yeah, usually no offense to whoever is writing the demo, who's ever writing the demo production, but yeah, that was the process, right? Receive the demo. Absolutely love the vocals.
Yeah.
But yeah, 90% of the time, I think for this specific 3 Days, 2 Nights project, it was not a songwriting process as well that I took part in.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. It's super fun to take a demo and a vocal and take, as you had said, strip away the music. And then you just start with the vocal. It's almost kind of like you're doing a remix. You're obviously like remaking it into something new and fresh. I always love that. I love just having the vocal by itself. And then it's like, you can do anything, right?
Yeah. So it's like, I actually found this to be my favorite way to work. I think it's like intuitive for me because when I first got my start with music production, like I actually started as a remixer. So I started by posting bootleg remixes of old hip hop and R&B songs. And then eventually like segued into doing official remix work where labels would commission remixes to be done, and then moved into original music. But 90% of the time in creating those remixes, not 90%, 100% of the time, it was downloading like an acapella downloading like a bootleg vocal and then creating production around it and putting my spin on it. So it's like, that's like just how I got my start, and now how I love to work on the original music.
That's how I got my start too, is with the bootlegs. I think a lot of I don't actually know that I've ever met anyone that was like, my very first remix was a official remix for Tiesto, like the first time I ever remixed was for David Guetta, right? But for me too, I started out when Adele's Hello came out. I think it was like 2015 or 16. And the interesting thing about Adele is she's one of the few artists that she hates remixes of her music. She hates all remixes to the point that the The labels never commission official remixes for her. She is like so against it. But for us bootleggers, that is like a super sweet opportunity because it's like this. It's an even playing field because in normal music campaigns, you've got the label will commission official remixes, and then on the side you've got bootleg remixes, which are remixes that are from amateur people just starting up, or even people that are established, but they haven't been commissioned by the label. And the reason why there's a disadvantage there is because the label commissioning the official remixes, that gets like put out, that has the whole machine behind it, right?
Right.
It's officially distributed to radio or to the DJ record pools, and it's there's a pipeline that it gets funneled into, and then as a bootlegger, you're like, oh, but my remake, hey, I just put this on SoundCloud,
Yeah.
But when I did Adele, it wasn't the case. So any bootleg was all that the world had. That's how I got my start too. Your first couple remixes that you did, when you listen back to them, what kind of thoughts come to mind?
Yeah.
And I'll answer for myself too. And I can do first if you want to, but you can go also.
Oh man. Yeah, I think the production has certainly evolved since then, but funny enough, I think the numbers that I was seeing on some of my first releases ever are arguably or like debatably like the largest numbers of my career. Like, for example, my first ever, I think, bootleg remix was a remix of Baby Bash Sugar Sugar. And it went completely viral. And like to date, it has 20 million streams on SoundCloud and God knows how many on YouTube and wherever else. But I think like and that was my first ever bootleg or like remix release ever. Wow. So arguably like the numbers I was seeing then are bigger than the numbers I'm seeing now on some of my original tracks. But the production, listening back, the production is not the production that I wish 20 million people would have listened to.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things in your favor whenever you start out the way you did with the bootlegs. Like, one, there are no stakes. And so there's no pressure, really. If you're commissioned to do an official remix, or if you have your own music that you're putting out. And actually, last episode or a couple episodes ago, I had Felix Cartel on, and we talked about this. We talked about like the kind of like the perceived perception that artists have when they first start out. And I had it too, of like, oh my gosh, this is my first single. Like, it needs to do, it's got to do well. And they've got this like, and Felix is like saying how he thinks a lot about like how do we overcome that initial perceived pressure? And as you release more and more, the pressure goes away because you realize like, oh, like I'm just, okay, if this doesn't do well, like that's not the end of the world.
Yep.
But when you're doing bootlegs, it's great because you don't have that pressure because you're literally like you're remixing without permission, right? So you're like stealing. I'm just being dramatic saying stealing. Like you're stealing a vocal. You're taking a vocal, and you're making something that has not been commissioned, paid for, authorized. And so it's like exciting, and there's no pressure there. It's like, hey, I could do whatever I want, and it could suck. And if it sucks, it's not the end of the world because it wasn't even official anyways.
Yeah, no, there's no pressure at all. I think there's only upside because in the case that it does go viral,
that's my point, the upside.
Yeah, it's like, and no pun intended, being that there's a track on the 3 Days 2 Nights project called Upside.
Called Upside on your EP, yeah.
Yeah, on the EP, but there's only upside. I think there is no pressure at all. There's only upside because if in the case that it does go viral, the label is probably going to catch wind of it and then end up officially releasing it anyways. So it's like,
that happens all the time. That's so
happens all the time.
So you don't have the pressure, and so you feel more free to create because like the mind, we have the fight or flight response to the mind. We've got like the primitive sides of our mind. And the funny thing with creativity is like you cannot be in your fight or flight primitive side of your brain to create. Like you've got to be in a calm state and you've got to be free flowing. So my point was like that was the first thing working for you. And the second thing working for you is also when you're starting out, it's almost like you can have happy accidents. Like when you don't know a ton about production, when you don't have a ton of technique and like a lot of go-to things that you do in the studio and you're kind of playing, I feel like you're more likely to try to do something in terms of like sounds or production that you may not do later on because it's like not normally done or it's like not the way you usually do it, but you don't know because you're just like trying to learn how to do a remix. So you're kind of just like trying things out. And I feel like you're more likely to maybe try something new. It's kind of like, on a side note, like Max Martin, do you know the story about like Baby One More Time? Britney Spears' Baby One More Time? And like Max Martin, who produced that, it was from Sweden. And they were trying to make American R&B music. Like they thought they were making R&B music. So it was like the Swedish version of R&B, but they didn't quite make our version because they have a whole different like background and worldview, and they ended up inventing this whole genre of, they changed pop music. It was pop music.
Right.
But it was like a happy accident, right? That's my point.
Yeah. No, it makes total sense. I think, yeah, one thing I noticed when I listen back is as well, I think like based on everything you're saying, is that it's like the music was almost much more simple. Like, yeah, it's just like not a lot of production components, just like simple, but to the point, like simple and effective. And I think that's why it resonated. Yeah, it's like, anyways, my point is like a song doesn't have to be overcomplicated to be successful. Like sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ideas, and that can beat out an overcomplicated or overproduced idea.
Yes, 100%. You don't want to overthink the production. You really want it to complement. You want the production to complement the song. And
exactly.
The best remixes do that. Okay,
exactly.
Let's dive into these songs. I'm really curious. So we're back to the EP. If you're just joining us on IW Radio, I've got my guest, Please and Thank You, and we are going over his EP, 3 Days, 2 Nights. And we're about to dive into a couple of the songs on here, some of the lyrics. So let me see. I'm gonna tell you some of the lyrics that stood out to me.
Cool.
Okay, here's one. So Party in My Head, first song. The lyric that stood out to me on Party in My Head is this lyric. My bad. My bad. I always say too much.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
And what I'm excited about this because like you didn't write. You said like 90% of the songs on here. I mean, it's collaborative. 90% were written with a top liner. So I love that I can talk to you about these lyrics, and we just get like, because like if I talk to someone who wrote the lyric, they're gonna say, yes, that's the lyric I wrote, and it came from blah 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 and this and this and this. But I like talking to you because it's like I can kind of just get like your thoughts on it, your interpretation.
Yeah.
You're in the same boat as me and the listeners right now because we didn't write this either, you know.
Yeah.
So the lyric, my bad, I always say too much.
Yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. I think it's really just like a guy and a girl. It's like, I don't know, just talking too much or like overstating some things, and like the girl just like doesn't want to hear it. I think that's.
Are you an overshare or an undersharer? Because usually there's one of each in a relationship or dating scenario.
Yeah, I think I'm an undersharer. I'm a little bit reserved in a way.
Yeah, more of the undersharer.
But yeah, I think that's the lyric, right? It's just like, yeah, just oversharing, and the girl just is like fed up and doesn't want to hear.
And also too, the idea of oversharing is interesting to me. So I'm dating. I'm technically single, but there's somebody I'm dating, or I would just say I was on a date the other day, and he apologized. He was apologizing a lot, kind of like, oh, I'm like, he would say something and then he would say he's sorry. And then he would say that, and I noticed multiple times he said TMI. Like he would say, he would kind of preface with like, this is probably TMI, but da 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 da. And I was like, you don't have to say that. Like you could just,
yeah.
I was like, it's not TMI, but I was like, also like, you're just sharing with me your experience. And I didn't think anything he said was TMI. So I kind of pointed that out for him. And I also encouraged him not to apologize as much because he would say something, but then he would say, I'm sorry. And, you know, so
yeah,
when I read this lyric, it reminds me of that.
Yeah, no, that's like a perfect. Yes, it's so relatable. I think the lyric goes like, "My bad, I always say too much. How'd I get caught up in the
Oh
rush?"
yeah.
It's
Yes.
like, yeah, just like rush of the moment, just like overstating or like oversharing too much information. Yeah,
Yeah, and you know, like the intentions are good. I think what it comes down to is when someone's saying, "Oh, this is TMI," or like they apologize soon after. I think it's because if they really like the person they're with and they want to have a good impression and they don't want to like it in their mind screw things up, or maybe in the past things didn't work out, or maybe they were like so. For instance, some other things he said to me was that he feels like I never judge him. He's like, "You never judge me. I really like that." I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, I don't." But then it makes me think like, okay, well, other people in the past must have
yeah,
judged him. And so I could see there being a hesitation of like, I've said things in the past and then the person judged me, or like things changed after I started to kind of like reveal myself to them. Yeah, that's kind of my experience right now. That's
yeah.
how
No,
I'm relating.
totally. It's super relatable. Yeah, it makes sense.
So you're an overshare. I
Under,
am.
under,
Oh,
under.
yeah, under. You're an undersharer. I'm a I'm a measured sharer.
I
I
like
like
that. I
think
like
about
that.
everything I say before I say it, and I really think about like, yeah, intentionally. Like, do I want to reveal this? Yes. Okay, here we go.
Yeah, I'd say I'm the same way.
I wasn't always like
That's a
that.
good way to put it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a measured. Yeah,
a
I
measure.
have overshared in the past, and it did not have a good effect. I've overshared in the past, and I was dating someone I overshared, and it was fine in the moment, but then later on when we broke up, my
Oh,
oversharing was used against me.
yeah, all the secrets, all the skeletons
There was
come
a
out of the
laundry
closet.
list of like, well, you did this and you said this and you were doing this and da da da. And I'm like, oh damn, like I don't think I'm not revealing that stuff again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
All right. So that's Party in My Head. Cool. All right. Next song up on the EP is Echoes.
Ooh.
All right. Ooh, yeah. So let's see. I have a few highlighted here. Okay, here's one. I can tell you're awake, but you're pretending to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, Echoes at its core is like a heartbreak song or a love song, if you will. So, yeah, I can tell you're awake, but you're pretending to sleep. It's like, you're just like lying next to your partner, and like, yeah, you're both awake, and it's just awkward because you know that they're like trying to pretend that they're asleep, but they're just like
Yeah.
laying there thinking the same thing as you. That's like, yeah, it's awkward.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
that is an awkward moment. I can tell you're awake, but you're pretending to sleep. The only reason we're close is because we're sharing the sheets. Wow. That's kind of like Rihanna's the California King bed, where you're like in the
Yeah,
same bed, but you feel like you're miles apart from the person. Like, oh my God. I can
yeah.
relate to that. I'm sure everyone listening or watching online can relate as well.
Yeah, it's a strong lyric. I love that one. I
Yeah,
love that one.
wow. The only reason we're close is because we're sharing the sheets. Oof, that's interesting. Yeah, okay, so that's that lyric. Okay, here's another one. You don't love me like you said so. I'd rather feel the echoes. I'm curious, what do you think about when you I'd rather feel the echoes. To you, what would the echoes be to you in a relationship or dating scenario?
Yeah, the echoes are like the best of times, right?
Okay.
Like when everything was perfect, and it not even if it was perfect, but if it was just okay, like not a disaster, or when things are like falling apart. So I think the echoes is like,
Huh.
um, yeah, like trying to hold on to the good times, or like missing what was once good, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I see. Okay. You don't love me like you said, so I'd rather feel the echoes. So, like, this isn't what I thought it would be or what you said it would be. And I really love the good times that we had.
Yep.
I really want to just sit with that, the echoes of
Yeah,
that.
the echoes of the good times.
Ooh, I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one from the same song Echoes. Shadows have taken your place. Silence 3 whole days.
Yeah, so
Shadow.
this would be like end stage like when things have like totally fallen apart. I think this is like the second verse too. So it's kind of like an interesting progression of like over the course of the song where it's like the first verse, like things are still okay, but falling apart. And then second verse, it's like kind of like totally like disastrous, like, yeah, just shadows, like the person is no longer even there.
Ooh,
right. So it's like
shadows or
shadows have taken your place,
Yeah.
silence 3 days, like haven't heard from you in 3 days, you're not around, blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of like the aftermath.
it is. Yep.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's Echoes. I like this one. All right.
Yeah,
Next song.
Echoes is a great one.
Yeah. It really. Yeah. It is beautiful. Okay. So we've got two. I have two songs left. Okay.
Cool.
The next song is Limit, and the lyrics that on here that stood out to me are, "Oh, I never believed in magic because no one ever gave me proof."
Yeah, so Limit is totally more upbeat. Like Limit is like a happy, feel good song, right? So it's like polar opposite of Echo's Heartbreak, but Limit's kind of like yeah, just feel good, like upbeat, happy partner, like love type songs. So it's like I never believed in magic because no one ever gave me proof until I met you, right? So it's like that's not the next lyric, but like it's like
but that's the sentiment.
That's
that's
kind of
like
like
the thought.
you're the person that showed me like what is love and magic and happiness and whatever.
I love that. Yeah. So I never believed in magic because no one ever showed me proof, but like now I do believe in magic because I met you.
Yep.
And you're like,
yeah,
you're like
exactly.
for me. Ooh, that's sweet. I like that. Okay. The other line on here that stood out to me was, "And how did you ever find me when I was hiding underground?" I thought that was interesting. Hiding underground.
Hiding underground is kind of so not literally underground, but just kind of like just like hiding away, like in your mind, like in your thoughts, like kind of being like a hermit, if you will. So yeah, just not being sociable, just like kind of living in your own thoughts. And yeah,
and
that makes sense.
It's also kind of like maybe the person's sleepwalking through life and or maybe they didn't realize, maybe they just have not met somebody where things clicked, and then things click and all of a sudden you kind of feel like more awake and more alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Or too, it could also be maybe you had from your past, maybe hiding underground is more like maybe they had a difficult upbringing, or maybe they've always been like independent, always on their own, and they've always had to like kind of like fend for themselves. And so hiding underground is kind of like keeping to yourself, going about my life, keeping to myself. And then kind of like you found me and you brought me out of my shell. Like maybe I'm a kind of like a shy person, and you're like, because like for me, I love to date people who are extroverts, who are like social butterflies, because I'm not. Like on the show here, I'm more outgoing, but in a social setting, I'm very introverted.
Yeah, same.
You too? I hate small talk. That's why this show's all about like getting deep if we can, because I don't like small talk. And then in social settings, I can kind of get overwhelmed by all the people, and I'd rather just like be home by myself or, in a car. Like, how are you? You're like that too?
Yeah, no, I'm the same. And I also don't like I think like small talk is just like, pointless. Like I really want to like get to know somebody and like, just like be on their wavelength or not. You know what I mean? Like I think small talk is just like, like what's the point? Like,
and I think a lot of artists, a lot of us are like that.
Yeah, deeper connections with people.
Because to have a hobby or a career where you're for a living or just spending a lot of your time expressing through your art, that's like at the core of that, right? It's like you're looking for connection, you're looking for understanding, and you're trying to communicate that. So anything that's like surfacey, and I guess I can't speak for all artists because there's definitely a lot of music out there that's super, like I don't personally like pop music. I'm not a pop person. And for me, it's because the lyrics and it's just a lot of it's just it's not interesting to me.
Yeah.
But I'm not writing it off. There's like a time and place for like party music and rager music, and definitely. We need all of it. But like for me, I like stuff that I can really like sink my teeth into and relate to.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Okay, we got one song left and it's New Color.
Awesome.
The lyrics on here that stood out to me are, "You're a new color to me, a color I have never seen." I like this one.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, this is just like a feel good, like happy, upbeat song. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. There's no way to explain, I guess, like a true connection or like a true love to somebody. So yeah, this is kind of just like a metaphor of just like finding that true love and like true happiness. This is like, you're like a new color, a color that's like doesn't even exist. Like I can't
Yeah.
even put in words like what that is.
It's interesting because the person, like, if they are a new color, they've obviously been alive for however many years they've been alive for, right? So they've been this color all these years, but they're new to you because you're just meeting them, right? Or they're just entering into your life. So it's like this. It's almost like discovering a new animal or a new species or something. That's like the species has been there. We just haven't seen it before. We haven't discovered it before.
Yeah.
That's how I interpret it.
Yeah. I love that.
You're a new
Love
color
that.
to me. It's like, and to me, that's so exciting because, especially with a lot of us, we have very, a lot of us have our routine. We do a lot of the same things. We meet a lot of the same people. It can get boring. It can get monotonous. So then to like, somebody comes along and you're like, I've never met anyone like you. You're like totally new kind of person. I didn't know this was possible. That's always the best feeling. Like, oh, I didn't know this kind of person could exist. Like, yay.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
All right. So we're at the end of the segment, right at the end of the show. Yeah, frowny face.
Mhm.
But listener, it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you so much.
if you're listening on Adobe Radio, if you joined us partially through this, my guess is please and thank you. And the full video, because this is video, even though it's being played on the radio, the full video version of this conversation is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. So you can go in there and watch it if you missed any of this or if you want to recap any of it or share it with people. I would recommend checking that out. I'd recommend checking out the EP, 3 Days, 2 Nights, and your socials. What are your socials?
So pleaseandthankyou.com, PLS&TY.com. Yeah, Facebook's Please and Thank You, Twitter, Please and Thank You Based.
Wait, what is this?
Spotify, Please and Thank You. Yeah,
Based?
head to my website and you'll find
It's on
all
the
the
website.
socials.
Okay. If you're watching this on streaming on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, we're linking to the socials in the description. But for those on the
There we
radio,
go.
you can do a search. Yeah. Thanks for coming on Life Rhythms. This was great.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah,
Awesome.
pleasure.
All right. We'll see you next time on Life Rhythms.